Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 234. Breaking Point, Confronting What You Tolerate for True Happiness. Well, welcome back to this month, which is all about us and taking good care of us and boundaries and not having boundaries. And as you know, the last couple of weeks, we've been exploring how you got here, your family dynamics, why it's hard to set boundaries for yourself, all the setup. And one of the hardest and most liberating things that we can come to recognize when we do the work is everything is our responsibility to own and to heal, change, and grow if we want to. We are not responsible for what happened to us. But as adults, we're responsible today for what we want to do with that. And there's some grief work in that. This week, we're going to dive into a powerful conversation about what we tolerate in our relationships and in our lives, all the invisible stuff we tolerate, and how we can love ourselves enough to set boundaries and let go of what no longer serves us. But before we do, just want to remind you that it's a great time to take advantage of the price break on my course, Finding Your Voice, which is a 12-module immersion course. There's a self-study component, and there's a wonderful group coaching component and one-on-one support if you need that as well. And all you need to do is go to findyourvoicecourse.com or hit the link in the show notes. And if you have any questions at all, just hit me up. I'm right here for you. All right. So first, let's talk about the importance of self-love, because we will tolerate what we think we should have to tolerate because we're not loving ourselves. So self-love's a big deal. You know that. We've talked about it here on the show many times, and we'll continue to. It's about caring and valuing yourself on a deep and fundamental level. It means recognizing your worth, acknowledging your strengths, being honest about your weaknesses, but without judgment. And it means prioritizing your well-being. Now let's get into that a little bit more, because I think this is really important. You can't just tell someone, don't tolerate things that aren't good for you, unless they love themselves enough to know that they don't have to tolerate what's not good for them. Self-worth. So self-love starts with acknowledging that you are an inherently valuable being. You're just valuable because we all are. And it means your worth is not determined by external factors. What you do, what you don't do, what other people think of you does not determine your value. It means embracing our imperfections. Again, our strengths and our weaknesses. It's about looking at our imperfections and understanding they're an integral part of our unique identity. Some things are just quirks, and some things we might want to work on and make better. But things like our age and our looks and our intellect, things like that, maybe the color of our eyes. Acceptance is a big key. Acceptance of things we can't change about ourselves. And then acceptance of things we, are born with. And then the diligence to work on things that we want to change, like behaviors or choices. It means setting healthy boundaries. When you love yourself, you're more likely to establish and maintain, that's the big key, maintain healthy boundaries in your relationships. It makes sense. You'll know when to say no. You'll express your needs. You'll be protecting your emotional well-being. Self-love means prioritizing your self-care. It's not selfish, it's self-care, so you can take better care of other people later. It means taking time for activities that bring you joy and rest and relaxation. It means caring for your physical, your emotional, and your mental health. so that you're better equipped to deal with life. I think this is mainly because it helps you get out of that fight or flight survival mode. And this is very important, and here's why. I want to stop here for a second and say, we all know that we make less than fabulous decisions, if not the worst decisions we could ever make when we do it from a place of fear and or self-doubt. When we are worn down and thus vulnerable, we are so much more susceptible to things and people, I think, that are not in our best interest, even if they look good on the surface. Like falling for a manipulative friend or a partner, allowing ourselves to get talked into things that aren't right for us, for not seeing the shopping cart of red flags, or fun facts, however you want to look at them, for not really seeing the reality about a person, a situation, not listening to our gut, to our intuition, to our inner knowing. So take a moment right now and think back to past decisions, or maybe even a recent one, and where you were at the time. Like, do you think you were on solid emotional and psychological footing? Or did you just come out of like a big loss or a stressful situation that wore you down over time? Where maybe you felt alone, maybe in need of rescue and didn't realize it at the time. And know that most of this, when you're in it, you don't see it. It's subconscious. We can always see it better with clarity when we have hindsight, of course. And if you are one who likes to think that they can survive life and get through things with will and willpower and strength, it might be harder for you to recognize when you are worn down because you just keep going and doing and you're not in touch. And so that's something really important to pay attention to. Okay. So back to self-care, enhanced resilience is a big piece. So when we love ourselves, it makes us more resilient when it comes to adversity. Because when you have a strong foundation of self-love, not self-will, I think you're better equipped to cope with setbacks, to be in the moment, to not be blind to things, to really learn your lessons as you go, and come back from challenges. This includes self-trust, like trusting what you think, what you feel, what you need, and what you know, and confidence. It means you know what matters to you the most and what you stand for and what you're against. You know what your behaviors are, scratch that, you know what your boundaries are, and you know what it looks like in your life when you're truly loving yourself and when you're not. Self-love is a positive mindset. It's solution-focused. It's about self-compassion. It's about loving, maybe honest, but loving self-talk. So self-love is also, finally, such a catalyst for personal growth and development. When you love yourself, you're more likely, obviously, to want to feel better, do better, pursue your goals, take healthy risks in your life, and step outside of your comfort zone. You're going to want to go for your full potential. You feeling completely authentic. All right, so self-care is really important as a foundation, and hopefully, as you were listening, you can kind of gauge where you are today, where you've been, where you'd like to be, because that's really important, because I want you to connect that with what you might be tolerating in your life. And remember, tolerating can be really invisible, or you may not see it. And I want you to think of a continuum from really horrible to kind of benign and everything in between those two, okay? Because you don't have to be in a horrible space and your life to be blowing up for you to be tolerating stuff. Okay, so let's talk about what tolerations are. In personal relationships, tolerance is a good thing, right? It's fundamental. It allows us to foster understanding and empathy. It allows us to coexist with those who might have different perspectives or values or lifestyles. Tolerance in our personal life involves appreciating diversity within our families, our friendships, and our communities, and I think that's really important because it creates space for individual uniqueness. It really helps us navigate conflicts with better respect and more open-mindedness. Tolerance helps us build connections across various backgrounds and helps us maintain positive relationships. But here's the thing. Although that kind of tolerance is great, it's not always a virtue. Sometimes it can hurt us. It can lead to complacency and compromise that isn't healthy. What do I mean by complacency? So when we have excessive tolerance over time, it can really lead to becoming complacent, which means we're tolerating everything without discernment or really critically evaluating what's going on because we have a lack of motivation to address issues or make necessary changes. And that's the frog in warm water, right? It's over time you get worn down and worn down and worn down more and more and more till you don't have any energy to do anything anymore. We can become passive observers. We can gradually accept situations that might not be conducive to our well-being. And that's why this stuff is so invisible, because you don't see it, because it's gradual. I mean, most people, if they're going to come up to you and grab your wallet or take your car or scream and yell at you, you can see the unhealthiness of that. And you can do something rather quickly about it. But when it's here and there and mixed in with nice things and it's gradual and you don't see it, because your brain's not seeing it either, it's not novel. It's just a gradual, slippery slope. Tolerance means a compromise of our principles. When we prioritize maintaining a harmonious environment over standing up for our beliefs, keep the peace at any price, we can find ourselves in situations where we're going to compromise our core values. This can really hurt our personal integrity, the ability to feel authentic, to be authentic, among other awful things. The toll here runs deep. And I don't think I have to tell you that. I think you already know that. Maybe there's a failure to address conflict. Tolerance, when it's not accompanied by effective communication and boundaries and conflict resolution, can really lead to the avoidance of necessary conflict. When we have to confront a situation, confront someone else, confront ourselves. Because we know that if they're unaddressed, they're going to fester and they're probably going to cause bigger problems later on. So although tolerance is great where it's great, it's not good where we're tolerating things that are unhealthy for us. Let's talk about what that means in terms of boundaries, because tolerance doesn't mean accepting everything without discernment. We have to discern. We need to know what our limits are. And we need to know when it's appropriate to assert ourselves or take action. Now I want you to take a few moments to kind of reflect on areas of your life where you may be tolerating discomfort, dissatisfaction, toxicity, your own complacency, whatever it can be. Let's look at some typical culprits, but this is by no means the whole list. Whatever comes up for you, trust it. Whatever hits your radar today as you're listening to this and thinking about this, it will show itself to you. Typical ones are how we're being treated in our relationships. Maybe your boundaries aren't being respected, and maybe it's not huge boundary violations. It's a bunch of little ones that add up. Like maybe you live with a selfish person or selfish people. Maybe you're doing all the work and they're not, and you're allowing them not to. Maybe you're working too many hours. Maybe you're working too much because your partner isn't working enough. Maybe there's a lack of balance in your life. Maybe your workplace isn't very healthy. Maybe it's even toxic. Maybe it used to be better, or maybe you're getting healthier and you notice now that it's not very healthy. Maybe you have unhealthy habits like not eating well, not sleeping enough, not exercising enough, scrolling too much. Maybe your family. Maybe your family's dysfunction. Here come the holidays. Here comes the dysfunction. Maybe you're tolerating earning less than what you deserve, or tolerating a job that isn't awful, but does not challenge you or allow you to grow. Maybe you're tolerating messy environments, a little bit of self-neglect going on. What about how you're treating yourself? Maybe you're not making time for you. Maybe you're not taking care of things. And that means paying your bills, taking care of things that need to be addressed. Maybe it's procrastination going on, or there's all these things you know you need to deal with, but you haven't dealt with them yet. Maybe tolerating not taking care of your health in ways that you would like to. So those are some typical examples of areas that we can look at in our life and see how well we're doing. And you might be doing okay in some areas, but tolerating less than what you deserve in others. For people who are working on their people pleasing, this will be a big topic for you. Because as you wake up and see the light around what you've been putting up with and what you've been doing and saying yes to when your heart screamed no, what you've been secretly angry about. I mean, we're looking at, especially for women, a lot of autoimmune stuff, a lot of inflammatory stuff as stuffed anger. You know, people who are in caregiver roles, caretaking too much, maybe people pleasing, not owning their anger and thus not owning their boundaries. So there's some big costs to tolerating, especially things that are very toxic, and if it's over a period of time when it becomes chronic. I mean, tolerating negative situations can have profound impacts on our mental health, our relationships, and our overall happiness. And the impact is multifaceted. It's usually not straight up and simple. It's going to influence various parts of your well-being, okay? Your mental health. When you tolerate negative situations for a long time, it contributes to your chronic stress, your anxiety, and maybe even your depression. Because there's this ongoing exposure to unfavorable conditions. It leads to like that low-level fight or flight that you're in all the time, and this can really take a toll. It can impact your cognitive functions, your emotional well-being, and how you think and feel about yourself and how you see life. Feeling that kind of powerlessness is not good. And this learned helplessness can kick in over time where, you know, and I know you probably have felt this way and you've heard people say to you how they're throwing their hands up. They're like, there's nothing I can do. I don't know how to change this. I don't know how to get out of this. They don't feel very empowered. They don't have a sense of agency around things that they actually can control. Relationships take a big hit. You know, tolerating negative dynamics within your relationships is going to lead to resentment, communication breakdowns for sure, like lots more conflict, and a gradual erosion of intimacy, especially the emotional intimacy, because it's not safe anymore. You're not addressing conflicts. There may be unhealthy power dynamics, probably a lot of emotional neglect that you're not even seeing or have just started to see. And how can you respect someone who you've come to resent? Because it doesn't feel like their behavior is showing respect for you. In a larger sense, how can we connect without authentically connecting? Because we can't. We need emotional honesty, we need boundaries, and we need safety and trust. Tolerating negative situations can also act as a barrier to our overall happiness, and we know that. You know, whether you're tolerating a toxic work environment, staying in unfulfilling relationships, or neglecting your personal well-being, there's a cumulative effect, and it takes its toll in every area of our life. One of the biggest areas, though, I think, is our self-esteem and our self-worth, because what we tolerate shows us what we're worth. And if we are tolerating some really awful stuff, it shows that we don't think that much about ourselves. And then it has a compounding effect, because then that, with the constant exposure to situations that go against your values, undermine your personal dignity, erode your confidence, you're hearing distortions about who you are and what you're worth and what you can do and what you can't do. You're taught to not trust what you think and what you feel and what you need and what your gut says. It's not a good scenario. Okay, so if you find yourself here, you want to be really gentle with yourself, especially this time of year. And we don't want to flog ourselves because maybe we've been tolerating things and situations and whatever that we shouldn't have been. Mindfulness is a really good way to look at things because there's no have-tos or shoulds in being mindful. It just means cultivating some mindfulness to become more aware of what we're tolerating and their impacts on us, like getting honest, not rationalizing, not making excuses anymore, but really looking at things, I think, without judgment, but with honesty. Saying things to ourselves like, I've allowed myself to be disrespected in this relationship in very subtle, insidious ways. And I deserve better. And it happened so gradually over time that I didn't notice it. And now I do. And now I want to do something about it. So that's an example. You're just looking at something, looking at it for what it is, not sugarcoating it, but not beating yourself up in the process either. So self-reflection is a big deal. It allows us to identify and assess all the areas of our lives where we might be tolerating less than what we deserve or tolerating negativity or even toxicity. Be kind to yourself here when you're doing this because you already know the shame will keep you from looking at it and dealing with it for real and out loud. Shame is what we hide in the back of the drawer and stuff under the bed. We don't want to look at it. We pretend it isn't there. And yet we can't feel clean or authentic until we yank it out and get rid of it. We know that. But we want to do it with love and support around us. You have to reach out for support, whether it's therapy, coaching, talking to your good friends, joining a support group. You got to reach out and get some help around this so you can get the insights, you can get the encouragement, you can get the guidance, and the accountability that you're going to need in order to honor yourself consistently. You can also get a shoulder to cry on because the shame and the disappointment in yourself is going to come to light, and that is hard. Forgiving ourselves is one of the hardest things in the world to do and the most necessary. And I tell clients all the time, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier for you to forgive yourself if you also know that you have a plan to make this right, to take action. And how do you do that? First, get back to the self-care like we talked about in the beginning of the episode. Do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself in the moment. You know what those things are. They've been showing up all around you, I'm sure, in terms of symptoms, right? Like physically, you're not doing well. Maybe the house is a mess. Maybe the bills aren't paid. Maybe you're stressed out and you're irritable. Maybe you're anxious a lot all the time because your anger is sitting underneath the anxiety. The evidence is there. Don't stress about like, oh God, how do I find it? Oh, it's there. It's already showing you, I'm sure. Next, do the boundary work. And get support around that because you can't do boundary work in a vacuum and you can't do it without accountability and love. Let yourself grieve what's been going on and let yourself learn how to let go of what you've been doing and not doing and allow yourself to start over, to reset, to change, to make it up to yourself and maybe to those who really care about you. Process the fears with other people. Normalize the shame and the guilt. Just normalize it. You and everyone else. You did not invent this. You're not that creative around this stuff. Celebrate your tiniest wins. They really matter. They stack up like we've been talking about here on the show. They make you stronger because you're piling up evidence. And every time you do something, you pile more evidence up. It matters. Even if you have a crappy day tomorrow, be proud of what you didn't put up with. Be proud of what you tried. Be proud of what you practiced. And if you really need some help, grab the course because the course gives you a structured environment to do all of this lovely work. And know that everyone here on this podcast is supporting you because these are all people like you who are working on themselves, who are imperfect, who are 3 forward, 2 back, get on the horse, fall off, get back on. But that's okay, because that's what creates real change, because it's bought and paid for. So today we looked at one of the aspects of life that I think often goes unnoticed, and that is, what are we tolerating? We looked at the hidden elements that we endure, whether in our personal relationships, at work, maybe within ourselves, when we don't take care of ourselves. We talked about self-care and how tolerating less than what we deserve is not loving ourselves. And then we got into the consequences of what happens when we tolerate this kind of negativity over time, that there are impacts on our mental health, our relationships, and our overall well-being. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you grabbed some things that were helpful to you. And if you need support, just reach out. I am here to support you in whatever you need. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter at unnoticed.com or hit the link in the show notes. Join the Facebook group. We have live sessions every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, talking about all this great stuff that we discuss on the show. All right. Pay it forward. Keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.